In this lesson, we're going to take our existing grill designs and we're going to add a little more detail to make them a bit more realistic. So if I zoom in on the grills that we've created and I Control-Alt-R to render these, you can see they look pretty good. But what's missing is sort of a filleted edge on these parts. So we're going to look at applying that to a whole group of things in this lesson. Go back to my shaded mode. I want to switch all the layers off except for the face bezel layers. So what I do is highlight the LCD layer here. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and I'm going to click on the light bulb on main body and it'll switch the light bulbs off for everything all at once. Now I really like this face bezel G1 and I really like the G3 bezel with the offset of the rows. I don't really care for this grill here, so I'm not going to develop this one any further. So I'll just kind of move that down my list. And sometimes what I'll actually end up doing, move this face bezel down, is I'll make another folder. Sometimes your layer list gets a little bit long and a little unwieldy, so I'll make another folder and kind of put all the parts I'm not using in that, and that makes it a little easier to work. So I'll just kind of call this one not using. Not a very catchy name, but it lets me know what's in there. So I can just drag all of those layers I'm not using in there, and then when I switch that off, everything disappears. Now I could do the same at this point. I'm kind of finished with a lot of this stuff. So I could go into underlay, curves, and face curves and drag those down to not using as well. And now I've really cleaned up my work area. Drag that over just a bit so you can see the names. So now if I want to switch everything on, I can hit that light bulb, hold down Shift, click on that light bulb, and everything all comes on all at once. Switch those all off. So as I said, we've got G1 and G3 are the face bezels that I'll move forward with. So what I want to do is I want to take this, I want to put a fillet edge on these holes. And obviously there's a lot of holes in this surface here. So I want to kind of do them all at once rather than having to do them individually. So that's quite easy to do. What I'll do is go over my variable radius fillet. I'm going to go into my right view. And I'm going to drag a box just about there. Go back to my perspective viewport. Notice I only dragged far enough to get the front edges of these boxes. I didn't grab the back edges of these boxes. Now I know for a fact that 1 millimeter is not going to work on these. Hit enter anyway just to look at it exploding here. If I switch on my preview, we should see these all failing. And keep in mind we're only putting a fillet on the very front edges of this face bezel. And you can see we got a lot of overlap. Everything's going to fail on this, as I knew it would for that size. So I'll go into Set All, and let's try a 0.2 millimeter, and we'll see what we get. It does take a few seconds for Rhino to generate a preview of this. And if I zoom out, I don't see anything going off into space in a weird sort of way. So that's a good sign. Now, when you're doing this many fillets, and this is a fairly complex surface, what I'm really worried about is how the fillets will do as they go around this edge here, where we have two different surfaces coming together. Those are going to be the tricky parts on this particular one. Let me hit enter to apply this, and then we'll see what we get. And unfortunately, that didn't work. So you can see, because it hasn't filleted these nice and cleanly, there was something about one of these it just didn't like. So unfortunately, our select all option is not going to work in this particular instance. So let me undo this. But I can approach this a little bit differently. So I want to be able to select as many as I can at once. I can't do that from the side view and exclude a bunch. I can do that from the front view, but if I grab in this front view, I'm also going to be grabbing in the back. So if I just extract these back surfaces here, so I'll right click on the explode icon. I've extracted that. I'll join it together. Then I'm just going to lock that so I don't accidentally do anything with it. Now I can go on my front view, I can apply my fillet again, and I can kind of drag a box around parts. The only thing I have to do is make sure that it does select all the parts I want. So I think most of these that are away from these surfaces are going to work pretty well. Let's see what we get when we apply these. Yep, and those all worked. If I go to my perspective viewport, you can see what we have there, and if I render this, now you can really see the difference. And that's why you want to add these, because you get such a nicer look to this surface. It's much more production realistic. So unfortunately, that means we've got to kind of go through all of these and individually apply them, or apply them in groups. Solid, fillet edge, remember that's the same command. Hit chain edges. Now what I may do is just try a few of these edge ones and see if I can find kind of the culprit that was making everything else fail. And those ones seem okay. Just be a little piece like that is what made everything else fail. And notice that failed right there. So let me try this. That's going to work. Try this one. That one works. That one doesn't. That could be what failed everything. And let me try this and see if that works for us. So that one doesn't seem to work. Let's find its mate on the other side. And that would be this one right here. Sometimes, for whatever reason, you'll find the left and right side of an object, even though they should be symmetrical, will work differently. And you can see that one doesn't work on that side either. So that's good to know. Makes more work for us, but it's good to know. So let's apply these and see what we get. Now we've identified the problem areas, let's finish adding the rest of the fillets in the next lesson.